Hello everyone, this is the Good Captain and welcome to another video in my tutorial series on the Midway Guadalcanal game system by Avalon Hill, the Smithsonian edition. And this is Coral Sea, Battle of the Coral Sea Part 3, and we are um, now going to conduct the massive Japanese air raid against Port Moresby. Up until now, things have been going very well for the Allies. They demolished the Tulagi seaplane base, sank the two destroyers nearby, and have even managed to shoot down one of the precious Japanese, long-range Japanese flying boats. But I think that's all going to change right now as the Battle of Port Moresby begins. So I'm going to lay out all the pieces here by class. So we got the dive bomber. All torpedo bombers are actually uh, register as medium when you are bombing a base or attacking a land base. So we're just going to leave everything kind of pooled up like that. But there is an air battle here. The Allied side did manage to put up two fighter groups. I don't know how effective they will be. But we will now conduct the air combat here. So let's begin. The first thing that we do is just the fighter-to-fighter combat. There's no base or bombers in this. And the way we do this is we have to attack even Steven as much as possible here. In other words, I wish that would align with the hex rows as well. But anyway, so one fighter, you have to fight 1-to-1 and 1-to-1 as best you can before you add in any other groupings. And if that doesn't make sense, it'll just stay with me. These half fighter squadrons can now spread out. So you have to go 1-to-1 as best you can and then layer the additional fighter units after you do a 1-to-1 matching. So because the Japanese exceed the Allied side, these fighters will now group up and make a bigger and better combat value. Now in this game, it is sequential, which means that the certain group of fighters gets to fire first, and then whatever damage is inflicted before the defender gets to fire. So in this case, the escorts get to fire first. So the Japanese will be allowed to fire first, and we're going to do this grouping here against the 1FG8 fighter, facing off against the 2ZF and the air group from Rabaul, 253rd Air Group here. So we add the combat factors from the fighters together. 6 plus 3 makes a 9. We roll a dice for the Japanese, and that modifies up to a 12. We rolled a 3, so 9 plus 3 is 12. We compare that against the defense value of the defending fighter. The Allied side rolls the die. They roll a 4. Add in the defense factor, it's a 6. So 12 is twice as much as 6. This fighter is flipped, but not destroyed, which is good. And then we'll move to this combat here. We have the Rabaul fighters 7, and then the carrier fighters here adding in 3. That's 9. We roll a dice for the Japanese, another 3, so 12 again. Is that right? 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm sorry, that's 13. And now the Allied side will roll a dice, and they roll a 9. 10, 11. So this was just a one hit on this second Allied fighter. I'll send it to the bottom so we can see. Okay, and only now do the Allied fighters get to return fire with the fire effects in play. So this fighter will only be able to attack at a 2. So we can select either of the fighter groups that attacked us here. So we will select this weaker fighter with its defense factor of 1. So our Allied side will roll a die. Rolls a 1. Add in the 2, we have an attack factor of 3. So the only way we'll do any damage is if the Japanese roll a 1. They did not, so this was ineffective. And the other Allied fighter will now attack, also with a 2. The 1 hit marker reduces the attack factor from 3 to 2. Rolls a die, we roll a 7, which modifies to a 9. there's a good possibility we'll do some damage here against this half fighter squadron. Japanese roll a defense factor, and it's a 3. Add 1, it's 4. 9 is twice as much as 4. So this unit is flipped, but since it's already flipped, it's actually destroyed. So we go to the operations card and we send yet another Japanese air group to the casualty pile. So that's it for the air battle. The Allies gave almost as good as they got up here. And there were no breakthroughs. A breakthrough occurs if if a flight of air units, if either of these Allied air units had been destroyed, then those squadrons of fighters would have broken through and been allowed to strafe Moresby. As it is, there is no strafing. There will be no strafing Japanese fighters. And the air battle, for all intents and purposes, is complete. So we'll go ahead and just move these fighters out of the way. Conversely, if the Allies, well, the Allied player wasn't, if the Allied player had gotten a breakthrough, they would have been allowed a crack at the bombers, but that didn't happen here. So here we go. We now enter into the anti-aircraft combat. Port Moresby will select one unit to shoot at. And after carefully studying the units that are available to shoot at, I think the best bang for our buck would be to fire the 5 defense factors at either one of these torpedo squadrons. The torpedo squadrons here have an attack factor of 7 and a defense factor of 1. That's the best defense to attack ratio. So we will roll a dice for, oh, I forgot, almost forgot, I should say. If we do this, we will have a negative modifier applied to our anti-aircraft roll, so it'll move from a 5 to a 4 because torpedo bomber units are categorized as medium when attacking a base. But yeah, we're still going to shoot at that. That attack factor is just too big. So yeah, we'll take the -1. So we'll throw a dice and add 4 and try to shoot this torpedo bomber group named 1ST. Here we go. Oof, we rolled a 3. So 4 plus 3 is 7 to the defense factor of 1, add 7. Yeah, so the anti-aircraft, unfortunately, ineffective. So here come the bombs. Here come the bombs. So let's add this all up. And all of these torpedo bombers added up make a whopping 65 attack factor. Okay. And when we add in the -4 that applies to medium level bombing against the base unit, it brings us down to 61. And it's really odd to say this, but even if the Japanese rolled the lowest number, a 1, which would bring us up to 62, and the Allies rolled a 10, which would be 17, 17 times 3 is 51, so there is no way to avoid utter destruction of Port Moresby, given how this happened. In fact, this was just a lot of overkill here. We didn't even really need the dive bombers. Arguably, we did in case something went terribly wrong against the Allied fighters, but Moresby is destroyed. So this means that any units on the ground of this base are counted as Japanese victory points. So we're just going to take everything out that was on the ground, drop it right in here. Let's remove that 1 hit marker. And in point of fact, we'll just do this right now. On the air return phase, since there's no land base for the patrol planes, these 2 that were already on patrol to land, they're going to be pulled off the map as well. 1, 2, and crushed. And in point of fact, even the combat air patrol will have no other base to fly off to. So they'll be taken down as well as casualties. So they're still here on the battle board somewhere. Yeah, I'll find them. And after checking the victory points in the back of the manual here, sorry, I guess I'm checking the Allied. This was a net gain for the Japanese have 27 points. That is a massive hit. So these are all the 27. It's actually going to be 28 once the scout, the Hudson that we just sent out there. So remember that the Allies sent a flying boat out. So this little guy can stay up there another turn, but he's just going to crash. He's going to be out of the game, I should say, after this turn. So it'll actually be 28. But for now, it's 27. So we're just going to make a label here to keep track of the points. So the Japanese have 27 so far. We'll just stack this up nice and neat. So the Allies have 11, and the Japanese currently stand at 27. So the Japanese side is ahead by 16 points, soon to be 17 points. But again, they need to have a net positive of 40 to claim victory in this scenario. But the Americans are definitely pretty far behind, or the Allied side, I should say. But yeah, this is something that clearly I don't think that the Allied side really has an option here. There's nothing that can prevent that from happening in this operational scenario. But again, both sides are still technically at draw. This basically restricts the battle to being carrier versus carrier here very shortly. Although Rabal's long-range land-based air is still definitely a threat. At this point, the Allied side does not have to fight this battle and should not fight this battle under the umbrella of Japanese land-based air. There's an argument to actually pull back a little bit as the Allies, but before we do, we're going to take a whack at Shortland base as the Allied player next turn and just try to score a few extra points here. Shortland base being worth 4 points, so that we definitely want to add that to that low-hanging fruit to our ledger if we can. We'll go straight into the air return phase for the Japanese. We're going to scout, or I'm sorry, we're going to patrol all 3 of these aircrafts. Okay. And I didn't return the Japanese air units to the search board. We need to do that now. So all the Japanese air units are in A6 at the moment. I broke them up into the 2 groups because the 1 groups can return to the aircraft carrier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, perfect. And the Rabal group is going to head back to Rabal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, perfect. Okay, and now we'll return them to their respective air bases and carriers. Okay, so there we are. They're all in the arming box here at Rabal and in their respective carriers on the Shikoku. And you know, the Moresby pretty much died, but it did take down a half squadron of Zeros, so it's not nothing. It's mostly nothing for what happened to it, but okay. There's a little bit of attrition going on the Japanese side in that way. Although the Allied side, of course, lost the whole, the best way I think to look at this is to not think of it as that those air units were destroyed, and that it's more like the base was so badly damaged, it's really not going to be repairable or operational within the scope of this operation. So for the next 3-4 days, it's out. That's the best way I can say it. Explain it in terms of the gamemanship of the game, the game system parameters. Okay, enough of that diversion. We now advance the turn markers on both boards, and we roll for side A and side B for turn 4 of May 4th. So we'll have the Japanese roll first. There's rolled a 2, and the Allied side rolls a 10. So the Allied side will be the side A this time. Okay, and the Japanese side will be side B. Okay. Except for one more very important, or could be very important thing here, the submarines. On the air return phase, we roll for submarines. So we'll have the Japanese side roll first since they were side A. Rolled a 7, which means the Americans won't qualify, but the Japanese could. Ooh, and the American side rolled a 2. So this is a case where the Japanese have rolled 3 times more than the Allied side in regards to submarine, and both sides have exact information. So the Japanese will declare M10 the site of the submarine strike or attempted strike. And this is kind of cool. So the Japanese player now gets to peer into that actual task grouping on the well, you can see it on the American operations card anyway, but they get to pick a ship out of the task force for which they have exact information and select one to be the target of that strike. The modifiers to the attack are it's good to attack at night, but that's not the case here. Or attacking a dead in the water ship. Otherwise, as long as you're not attacking a destroyer unit, there's no modifier in this case. However, for the defender, you get +1 per destroyer. This is for individual destroyers. And Lexington's group actually has the fewest amount of DDs of all the groups. It only has 4. So, and my understanding of this is that this is a special combat. So it says here both sides roll a die and combat is resolved and marked normally using the following combat modifiers. So I don't think where you actually use the defense factor of the ships. We just use the defender gets +1 per destroyer. So the defender, in this case the Lexington, well, obviously as the Japanese player, we're selecting that. We're going to select the carrier. We'll have a +4. Otherwise, everything's normal. So we will go ahead and roll the attacking dice as the Japanese player. Oh, we only rolled a 2. Okay, so there's no need to roll as the Allied player. I wonder, they probably didn't even know it was there. The torpedoes went wide, or the submarine was sunk in the process. Who knows? But the submarine strike fell on its rear end there for sure. Okay, so the last thing that I almost forgot to do again is to return the cap to their operations to the arming boxes here. So that's here and that's here. Okay. And that'll be it for this segment. When we come back, we will kick this off with an American raid on the Shortland flying boat base in Hex J4, and the battle will continue. It looks like most of the battle, after the Shortland raid, most of the activity on May 4th will be over, so the opening moves will be done and the carrier battle will now ensue. The true carrier to carrier battle. Thanks for watching this. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.